Today we're going to make a topiary, and I'm going to use dried flowers, and I'm going to use just a plain old clay pot. You can do several different treatments if you'd like to the pot. I've taken satin, maybe you're using hot pink or green or lavender for your wedding color, and you can take a circle of satin and just tuck that in and cover your pot if you'd like. You can also spray paint it if you would like, using gold or silver or accent any color. You can also sponge paint if you want a little bit more natural, and all you do with that is just take an acrylic, a little bit of sponge, and just sponge it on to add a little bit of difference. But the natural clay can also be very good too. So you're going to start with your pot, and then you take a chunk of Sahara, and it's called Sahara because it's a foam material that you use for dried or silk dried ingredients, unlike Oasis, which you use for live flowers. Oasis is green, Oasis is for live and water, as you would think in the Sahara Desert, so that's how you tell the difference. So anyhow, I'm going to trim this up, and what I use is a piece of steak knife that you have, and I'm just going to trim my corners to get it down into my pot and get a good snug little fit. And then I'm going to trim this to be about an inch above the pot line. And this is really difficult for a lot of people to think of doing, but it really has a more natural finish that when you generally see something growing in the ground, it's not sunken down, it's usually sort of a little mound above. So that's why we want to do that. So I'm going to take my steak knife and cut through, pop that off, and I'm going to round some corners here. And I'm going to take some of my wedges to wedge this in, and I'm going to even cut a few more. And get that to fit. I'm going to take another little chunk off here. And sort of fill in my base so that I now have this lovely and attractive base. Okay, then we're going to take a little bit of sheet moss, which I sort of have fixed here to fit. And I'm just going to pop our green sheet moss. This is a live dried product, as we say, and just tuck that right in. And notice I'm not using a glue gun. You don't need to with this sort of a thing, just the tucking in, getting your moss settled into your pot. Some people like to leave it hanging over the edge. That can be a very nice look too. So either way, you decide which look you like. I'm going to make this a little bit more of a controlled topiary, as we say. And then I'm going to use my dried flowers for their symbolism. And I have some, this is Pearly Everlasting for Love Everlasting, and it's in a very pretty antique white. And then I have lavender, which is for love and devotion, which of course is a wonderful herb that is great to have at weddings as well. So with this, and I've just sort of arranged it nice and neatly here with my lavender coming from the top, and I'm going to put that right through the center, and what I'm going to do is cut a little hole in here. So with my handy steak knife, you can also use a potato peeler if you have those tall thin ones, and go right down and cut a hole right out. And I'm just going to kind of move that around to make a space so I can get my stem in. And after arranging this to the size and the height that I want, I'm very gently but forcefully putting this down in my pot so that I now have my little topiary. Now, if you'd like, you can add a little ribbon if you would. And this, I liked this off-white with a little bit of gold to glitz it up. So just as you would for tying shoes, that same standard bow. You can ever so easily turn that in to a wonderful dried topiary that you can use for table decoration. Okay.
Gail, that's really just beautiful. It came out so nice. It was so easy to make. It was very simple, and I mean, we watched you, and within 5 minutes you had this whole arrangement.
You can put it together for not a whole lot, and have something that people can take home. And because it is already dried, it will last for a good long time. Don't have to worry about watering it, you know.
But you said the moss was live but dried. Do you have to do something to the moss to keep it alive?
No, it was alive. All of these products were living, breathing products that they've been dried so that they will last. They're already in their dried state. So the moss is like that. And you can spritz a little water occasionally on it just to keep it from getting totally brittle. Even you can do a little green food coloring in there to keep the green to it. And of course with any of your drieds, it's great to put a little lacquer of either hairspray or a clear acrylic spray that you can use on drieds. It helps to retain their color. And as always, you shouldn't put them in a bright light or near a direct heat source, because that does dry them out and make them fade sooner.
So spraying it with a little bit of hairspray,
hairspray
would help preserve it.
Yes.
Good tip.
Yes. It is great.
Nice arrangement. Thumbs up. Gail, you've been making crafts for years. Tell me, how did you learn how to make all these interesting things?
Well, by reading a lot and by sharing ideas with people and by coming to classes and picking up all those little handy hints along the way and playing with it. I think doing and learning from your own experimentation and your successes as well as some of those failures. You learn a few things. But it's the joy of it. That's what certainly, it's wonderful to create things and it's wonderful to enjoy them in your home.
So, Gail, and what are you going to show us today?
Today we're going to show you how to make a live topiary and how you can use this for a table decoration at your wedding and the different ways that you can put them together and decorate them up a little bit more.
Good, wonderful. I'm going to get out of your way. I want to watch you make it, and I'm going to talk to you about it when it's all done.
Alrighty. This is a ivy topiary that we have that is a great item to have for your wedding table decoration. A couple of things that I really like about it. One is your ivy is symbolic of fidelity, which is so nice to have in a marriage, particularly, and of course at a wedding too, the symbolism of it. But also it has the heart, which of course is symbolic of the love and so on that should be shared at a wedding occasion. This is a very pretty little pot that we've used at the bottom, but you can also use any plain pot and you can cover that or paint it to any color or designs that you may like, and using a fabric. Maybe you have a fabric, maybe the girls' gowns have been made, or you have one that you'd like to coordinate, and just do a circle that you can, and you can just tuck it up into the pot and change the look of it if you'd like. This is just simply taking your dirt and taking one of the topiary frames and just popping that right in your dirt, planting your plant, and then just twining it over. Now this is a table decoration that you're going to want to think of in advance because if you start with your smaller plants and you give them a few months growth, then in a very short time, this particular topiary started from a small plant at about this size, and it is taken it about 3 months to get to this covering. In another couple of months now, as we're getting into the growing season, it would even double in its thickness. So in a very simple time. Now you can take this if you'd like, and if you're going to use it for your wedding, and maybe you'd want to dress it up just a little bit more by using a ribbon, putting a little bow on it. And this is a great way to fill in, maybe there's a little spot that wasn't growing quite as thick as the rest, so we can fill it in. And using a little wonderful sheer ribbon, I just sort of like the white with this, and doing your standard bow. I think of it as tying my shoe. Just being careful not to touch your ivy. And just fluffing up your little bows and tying that in, and you can very simply dress it up. Now another thing, if you're having this in the center of a table and you want to do a little more than to decorate your table, you can go outside if you like the natural look. And I have gathered a few twigs here, which I think can always, when you're doing sort of a natural, maybe an outdoor wedding or a little gardeny look, and just taking some of your twigs, you can line them up on your table with your topiary, which gives it that sense of being fresh and live. And also if you have either a long table, you can use a long form such as these twigs to extend your design a little bit further and just give it some natural look. And then you can take some ivy silk, or if you have fresh. One gal that we helped her with a wedding in England, they had lots of fresh ivy, so she was out stealing it from all the buildings, I think, borrowing it, I'm sure, and did that for lining up the tables, had done some topiaries. But you can line that up, and then taking, just to give your ivy a little bit of structure, but then you can very simply carry out your theme. This is a great way to finish for a long table, because it can stretch your design from a round form, which I think is wonderful for using a round table that maybe seats 8 people. Then maybe you want to have a round centerpiece, but if you're doing the longer tables, then you want to have a design that's going to stretch out and not interfere with the dining as well. And always remember with your visual, so that you can see the people across the table. In general, you do want to see people. If you don't, then do plan on a higher centerpiece. But if you do want to see the people across the table, then do try to keep it under 16 inches. We find 16 inches about the right height, so you may want to keep that in mind. So here's a way you can extend your table with a nice, longer, but symbolic centerpiece.
Idea to be able to stretch it out like that, because we have, when we put on a wedding, or many weddings I've been to, there's a long head table, and at the head table it's usually rectangular and long and sort of up, and to keep the frame down below 16 inches lets everybody watch them slop food in their laps for the
Yes, or all those key kissings that they're, right?
Yeah, clicking at the glasses and kissing. Very pretty. Now,
with planning in advance, because you're going to need some grow time, I would say at least allow 3 months grow time to have your ivy do what you want it to do. You can use rosemary, which is wonderful for the symbolism of remembrance, but rosemary takes a lot longer, so that's another consideration, although it is a great trainer and can be used in the same concept.
You start off with a very small pot of ivy. How often should you water a plant like that? You have your 3-month growth cycle. Do you water it every couple of days, once a week?
Yeah, once a week is usually good once it's established, and it's always important to check it. Depending if you've got it near a direct heat source, it's getting a lot of light. Depends on how, if you put it in this pot, it's got plenty of room for the retention of water, so then you don't need to, versus a small pot where it doesn't have enough room to retain much water. But I find that my ivies at home, once a week's great. They like some light. It doesn't have to be sunlight right in the window, but they like the light.
And how do you check to know whether it needs water?
Well, the good old, finger in the dirt trick works really well. And if it's damp, this is still damp. You can feel that there's some dampness to that dirt, wouldn't you say?
Feels dry to me.
Yeah, see, you get near the roots, there's a little bit. It probably can use water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it feels damp to the touch, then that's fine. Just let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it's dry, that's getting pretty dry.
Yeah. So this was about 3 months growth, and you started off with just a little plant you could get at the supermarket then, or at a gardening supply shop.
Mm-hmm. That's the one.
Great.
Yeah.
And the twigs you just found around your garden in fall? Or?
That's the one. Go out and do a little clipping. Save those pruning pieces. You bet. You can do a lot with your creative craft work with twigs.
Great.
Very pretty.
Gail, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
It's always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks. We're coming into the season where weddings are about to start again, and there's so many outdoor weddings with tents and greenery and things, but every now and then you hear about the hurricanes that come and the tornadoes and stuff. Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact. We did a wonderful garden reception wedding in Saratoga, actually, Springs, and it was great. We had 300 people. We had tables all set, gorgeous circus tents, and the night before we had used the waterproof ribbon, done a similar decoration I'm going to show you here today, and had the tables set and everything was ready. And at about 6 o'clock we heard the thunder and the lightning, and the tornado came through, and by the grace of God, which I feel that's always good to ask for all help, the tornadoes went around the house, just where it touched down and absolutely destroyed, took trees down and that sort of thing. But we were clear, just lots of rain trenched down, and the tents just did this flying procedure, but we didn't put the sides down, so the wind went through, and everything was clean and fresh, and because of the waterproof ribbon and the tool which dries quickly, by 8 o'clock we had it clean and dry, and the wedding went off as planned at 11, so yeah.
Double stick tape.
Yes, use double stick tape. Hold that
Okay, we're
down.
going to step back and watch you make a long ribbon-style centerpiece.
Yes.
And we'll come and see it at the end.
There's so many creative things that you can think of doing, and I think that's one of the great things about weddings today is that you're not hemmed into one particular mode and that you have to follow. I think it's so great to personalize weddings, things that feel comfortable and good to you, using colors that you enjoy, and textures that really give you the look. You can think of all those different kinds of textures and feelings that you want to progress, and certainly this is a great ribbon that we have here. It's a nuance, it's a different fabric, but it is waterproof, so if you have any tornadoes and you're outside, great for that. Has great colors to it. What I'm going to do is show you how you can make a bow, and this is one way to make a different centerpiece, and particularly for a longer table, but it certainly can be adapted to a round one. So anyway, with making your bows in this, because I am going to have my tails running along the table, I'm going to make sure that I do have a good long tail. And I just pinch that ribbon and make a waistline and just connect that with my other waistline and just keep doing the figure 8, as I call it. Up and down, back and forth, however you want to look at it. We're going to make a nice full bow, and of course bows are so wonderful, have been around since, well, gosh, as long as we can remember. And certainly a great descriptive word for women. We've always had our buttons and bows and all that sort of thing, whether in her hair or behind her dress or whatever. But for all those special occasions, whether they've been in our bonnet or been at our wedding, we certainly have had bows that are there to help decorate for a special occasion, and great for weddings. So this is a great way to tie that in, and just doing that same up and down, and because I want my tails to go in opposite direction with the table centerpiece, that's the way I like to do it. So I'm going to use an even number of loops, which this has 8 loops, and I want my tails approximately the same size. So we're going to cut right there, and using a good heavy gauge wire, not so heavy that you don't have any flexibility. 22 gauge is just about right. Take a piece of that and put it right through my waist of my ribbon, of course, and connect that and bring that forward, my loops forward, so I can see the waistline, and taking my pliers, making that nice and firm, and it's really a tight waistline, the Scarlett O'Hara waistline, as we say, that makes it nice and tight. Now, we now can fluff that right out. And laying your bow down, I'm going to just bring my loops up, one down, one up, one down, and one up, one down. So now we have just a nice bow in the center of the table, but we're going to add to this just a little bit. I'm going to use some of my wonderful silk ivy, which is just great, also waterproof for those tornadoes it could hit. Run that right along. And if you will, picture this table being nice and long. And I'm going to add an extra little bunch here in the center just to give myself some extra greenery right here. And then you can take some tulle, and it's T-U-L-E, not T-O-O-L, just for those people who are unsure. And cut a little piece of that. And then I'm going to just run this right through. Now you could certainly use white. We're going to give it a little bit of a richer look with the green. And what that does, as you can see, is it softens your ivy just a little bit, gives it that whimsical, dreamy look. Placing your bow in the center. And your tails, we're just going to weave those right through our ivy. And this is one of those centerpieces that just grows as you do just a little bit more to it. It adds just every little step. And you may want to add a little candle. And this way you can have that light and that visual and that certainly that length and height in your centerpiece without interfering with your company across the way as well. But it's just a wonderful way to extend a design, to coordinate your colors and pull them onto the table and not upset anybody's space on the table as well or for their visual. But just a very lovely, colorful centerpiece.
And there's lots of options too, because I remember when we were in the ribbon room another day, we saw so many different types of colors, textures, different ways of tying in the bridal colors right into your table. So it's simple, easy, nice. It could be pinned to the tablecloths to keep them from moving if it's outdoors and windy.
Or double stick tape works.
Double stick tape. No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well,
today, Gail's going to be making little table favors, showing a variety of different sizes. Look forward to seeing what you're going to make, and go right to it.
Great, thank you. Table favors are something that can be limited only by your imagination, and I have some wonderful simple ideas that you can coordinate with your own wedding, whether you're doing something kind of fun or something black tie or something in the garden, or maybe something that is a little bit upscale or any of those things. You can certainly do and personalize it to your own way. And also if you don't want to do a whole lot. For those of you that don't want to be terribly creative, there's always the chocolate spoons. Everybody loves those, and that's an idea that you can certainly get and use. And there's the little potpourris. This is one that we use with our tool, and this has just a little bit of potpourri in it. It's great. Anybody can use it in their sachet drawer, and I'm going to show you how to tie the tool up. Very easy to do, making your own little personal potpourri, or you can certainly get that and use that. Now this is one of my favorites. It's the little black tie affair. It's the wonderful Cocoa Espresso with a little bow tie put right in the front, and it has a little upscale look, or maybe this is one for the guys and something different for the ladies. But again, a very fun and simple and not costly. This is a wonderful ribbon that we have here. It's a ribbon that has a tube right in the center of it so that you can stuff it, if you will, with candy or potpourri or maybe bath herbs, and then just tie either end of it, just as I did in this little finished product. So you have this little favor with this particular one does have some wonderful wedding potpourri using some flowers and herbs that are great symbolism for your wedding, what your theme was, and a little bit of ribbon, and you're all tied up, and there's a great way to go. There's another idea that I used with this particular ribbon, and it's our napkin holder. It's our little napkin ring there, and what it is one of our silk flowers, and what I did was just put my tubed ribbon right over it. One of the things I love to do is things that are nice and simple and aren't just a big deal. And one of the things I would do, because I don't want my green stem to show through, is using the floral tape. And notice that it is now white. You can get floral tape in different colors, white, green, brown, depending on what colors you need to do for your occasion. If you haven't used floral tape, it's wonderful and easy to use. It is sort of a waxy finish, and as you pull it, it actually becomes a little bit sticky, and it sticks to itself. So I'm going to just start at the top of this silk flower and just go right down, and as you're just kind of pulling on an angle, and just bring this right down so that it covers my stem so that it doesn't really show through when I put it in that ribbon. So it's just a very quick twirling process. I'm now covered, and then I'm going to slide that right into my ribbon. I think this is a fun little napkin ring that you can make even just for a special occasion at home, but a great wedding favor. And I'm going to connect this with my floral tape at the top. You could also use a glue gun if you'd like at this step. I try to avoid glue guns at all costs because once it's glued it is permanent. But this, you can certainly do that if you want, just at the top, or you can use a little bit of floral tape to catch that. And then this is where my stem ends right here, so I'm going to continue with another 6 inches of ribbon. And using my scissors, cut that, and then I'm going to split this ribbon down the middle so it gives me 2 sides to work with to tie this off. And I'm going to bend my wire that I have in the center that was the stem of that particular flower, so this is what's going to give it the strength to make it a ring. I have this ribbon that I had cut that I can bring through the other side and now just tie it. And you can either do a bow or a little knot, depending on whether you want to make it a part of the design or not, or depending on how it wants to cooperate. It's a little stiffer ribbon to get that through. And there we go. And we now have this little napkin ring, and you can just slide your napkin right through there. And that could certainly be one of your table favors if you'd like. So there's a simple and easy way to do that. Now another idea, if you're doing a garden reception, I think this is great. These little mini pots that we have here are wonderful, and this has got your little almonds, which of course for the Italian weddings are great to have. And again, a little piece of tulle, so you can just fill that with your snack. Wonderful for a garden reception, wonderful for an outdoor wedding. Terrific. And of course you could fill that with rice if you want it for people to throw, but certainly candies are always appreciated by most of the guests at the affair. Another thing you can do, if of course so many people are into gardening and of course planting some maybe favorite flowers or some special herbs that would be symbolic. This is a Sweet William, which may be a great flower for the fellas that we could have. And taking a little piece of your tulle, and if you're not familiar, this is T-U-L-E. It comes on a roll. We have it in 6-inch width, which is wonderful for most of these craft projects. And just cut a piece of it that will work, and then I'm just going to put these seeds in here. And using a little bit of ribbon, tying a little bow there. And then another thought to personalize this even more is to take one of your plant markers, and you could write the bride and groom's name and the date of the wedding and include that right there with your gift. And then when they plant those flowers, they can write that and have the bride and groom right there. Maybe they want to pot them indoors as well. So just a little bow on there. And you have a nice personal wedding favor as well that you can use. So there's another idea. I hope I've helped you with some very simple and easy table favors that you can use for your occasion. Thank you.